welcome to the World Movers Podcast. I am your host, DJ Angelfire, and today I will be joined with co-host Zalamander. He's got a great page on Instagram, does his own fashion line. We've also done an interview with him, which you can find in the links below. But today we have on a special artist, ShanzhaiSunbaby. And I just want to, right off the bat, give a big shout out to their page. They make some amazing collages, have some great artwork. So ShanzhaiSunbaby, would you like to sort of tell us your start into creating art and how that's impacted you and sort of what led you to create this Instagram?
Well, I guess like when the collage actually started becoming a serious thing was after discovering Ferraro, James Ferraro, and like looking at his like cover art and stuff, because he does like these really weird like psychedelic collages of whatever images, and that was the coolest shit. I was like, holy shit, I want to do this too. So like a lot of the early collages are definitely inspired by that. I did like an alternate cover, like an inspired cover for one of his albums, I Asia. Probably like my biggest inspiration in terms of the visual art, or at least what like launched me into doing the collages and like the Instagram stuff. But yeah, like that's been like a journey interwoven with like the aesthetic pages. I guess like these weird visuals or cursed photos, that kind of thing. I think it probably started on Tumblr, but then leaked into Instagram at some point. And like that was like my in to Instagram stuff. I had this old page called Gelatine 370X, and that was like, yeah, back in high school. Now abandoned, but yeah, that was like the start of me. I think that was when I started like saving and collecting all these images. Whenever I go on Wikipedia or like Google Images. And I just search for like random terms and go through and download millions of pictures. I've literally got like, I don't even know, like countless pictures saved in all these different folders on my computer, and that's kind of my collage. That's where I sample the images for the collages nowadays, just random shit that I find, and I think sort of like visually appeal to my sensibilities. Yeah, and then just,
I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah. And just sort of tie whatever concept to them, or like sort of the like what colors match, what looks nice in the composition. Yeah, there's not much planning that goes into it. It's just kind of like when I'm bored or got nothing better to do, and that's how it started anyway.
So I actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Second and Charles, but it's just like a secondhand bookstore, and I have one right by my house, and I used to like pick up old textbooks and stuff, and I would make like physical collages out of like weird imagery. And like you were saying, that this Ferrero guy, my stuff is very, I say my stuff, I did like 4 canvases and that's all I ever did. But like it's very psychedelic, and I feel like you'd really like it.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like I've been told a lot of my collages are kind of like encyclopedias, or that have like the Wikipedia aesthetic, just like all these random images stuck together, which I think is accurate. I think that's a lot of the inspiration too. My parents have like a bunch of books in their library, like these old National Geographics and these old encyclopedias, and I used to look through them as a kid. And so I feel like that probably bled in to a lot of the style that I do nowadays. I don't know. It's a lot of different influences that kind of play into it.
I just took pictures of mine.
Okay.
I went out right before the podcast to grab them, and I realized like I didn't clear coat them, so 2 of them like molded, so you can't see it. But this is the one of the good ones left.
Those are wicked. Holy shit! Look
at these. I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like an unreleased Ariel Pink album.
Yeah, that's duh.
Definitely be some kind of album art, yeah.
Just a fucking shameless plug. Hannah Banana, go to candle-cage-pan-solar.neocities.org.
That's the plug. Yeah, CEO Hannah Banana in the building. But those are so sick. Wow.
It was a lot of fun to do them.
Are these?
the second one has like a picture frame of a guy like looking this I don't even know what you call it, just like this scene with these like lizard people and these old this old couple.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love that. It's like a cult leader. I don't know.
It was out of this book it was about playwriting, and it had like weird photos of plays. So I like to take stuff. I'm sure you can relate to this, Claire, of like wanting to take stuff like obscure things out of context and then bastardize it, like funny in an aesthetic way. It makes it more obscure when you take it out of context.
Yeah, and I see that. It's funny, like, yeah, you take things out of context and suddenly they have this whole new meaning. That's probably one of my favorite parts of like the collage process, is like thinking about how you can use these images once you lay them down. I think that's a problem for me as well, though, is like I'm really scared of physical collage, you know? Because like once it's down, and then like you lose the image. That's a real fear. Like it's genuine.
I feel like if I did
mean,
it digitally though, I'm like I want everything to be perfect, and I'm always like, oh, this could be better. So like once you glue it down, it's like a way to finalize it, your decisions, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, with like this, with the Venetian matrix collaging projects, I'm kind of finding it harder and harder to complete these images, because like with each step, like to complete the composition and like balance it out with the, you know, the other side of the tiles on Instagram, you know how like sets it up. I just like start putting in more and more details and filling in the space, and I think that's a real problem for me. I just never know when to stop with the collage. And so at this point, it's just these tiny little like 5 pixel by 5 pixel images, and no one can ever see, and no one will ever identify but me.
Yeah.
And then they just never end. It's been a minute since I posted an image on that page, to be honest. Like, life just gets in the way, and you can't fucking work on them.
The master of the apocalypse.
Master of the Apocalypse Rose. Yeah, yeah. Or Venetian Matrix, I guess is the shortened. Yeah.
Yeah, this imagery is like right up my alley.
Oh, dope. Glad to hear it.
I feel like you know, all those sort of visual elements that you see with like Ferraros of the modern world combined or living with the ancient.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a big part of it as well, is like the idea of putting sort of the ancient and the modern kind of in flux, you know, like just combining all these images.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a vague concept that I'm trying to like tie together, because like all 3 Instagram pages are technically part of the same like ShanzhaiSunbaby project, which I'm still like working out the details of. It's some kind of story.
It's like Easter eggs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like little Easter eggs.
I don't know. I like the idea of sort of the overload of information kind of in the digital age, or like the information crisis is the term I kind of like to use, you know, with just like all this bombardment of images, sort of old and new, and how it kind of just becomes homogenized into this one stream of just stuff in the face.
Do you think like
so yeah, it's like, yeah, well, it's just the Venetian Matrix page is supposed to be like this unraveling tapestry. The name itself, Masters of the Apocalypse Rose, comes from. I don't know, like I was researching, well, I was like finding old images, and there's this one painting called Unicorn in Captivity. Well, it's not a painting, it's a tapestry called Unicorn in Captivity. And it's probably like my favorite painting of all time, but like no one knows who it's credited under. It's like this weird anomaly in art history. With all these weird little details in it, but like the one credit that I found like on an article, like on Wikipedia or something, was like it's credited under Master of the Apocalypse Rose, but like I can't find any information on who Master of the Apocalypse Rose was. But like that's just such a an inspiration,
yeah,
for it all, you know. Yeah, I mean, like I feel like it is kind of like about the end of the world or something, or just like the idea of all this stuff, like humanity's history. I think like another big inspiration is probably Age of by One Tricks Point Never. But basically it's like yeah, like after humans have like killed themselves off or something, like this AI takes over and sort of like searches through the internet to like try and figure out what it was all about. Or like no, I think it's like this
dystopian sort of.
AI, yeah, it's very dystopian. Like this AI that's become so
Post-human.
hyper intelligent kind of wants to be dumb like humans, and so it just absorbs the internet and sort of homogenizes all history. So you've got like these ancient instruments put in with these like modern synths and stuff, and yeah, like that's super the concept that I'm trying to go for.
I don't know why this might be out of left field, but it reminds me of and I haven't seen this movie since I was like 12, but that Pixar movie, what's it called? Wall-E, where they're like living on the spaceship, and like the humans there, or the captain is like looking through the archives of what humanity was, like plants and stuff, and they're like trying to learn. Like,
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
was.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like just putting like all these stories and these tropes and stuff in the same context, you know, like all these I know I like looking at sort of shitty old movies with like the weird CGI and stuff.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
That kind of time is forgotten. Part of like looking through these old Wikipedia articles and stuff is finding like these game assets and stuff from the 90s that kind of have been forgotten, and just like putting them with all these other images and just being like, you know, this shit's cool. Someone spent time on this. I want to pay respect to that and like put it in the collage, but then put it in with all the other things too. I guess the concept is like that, is like sort of looking back on humanity after the world ends or something. I don't know. Again, like the concept is still in construction.
Yeah.
Come back to me in 6
Oh.
months, I might have a better explanation. The sort of the prequel, the Star Wars prequel. Like, I haven't watched those movies in a minute. I don't remember anything about them. But like finding images of like the CGI and stuff is like so cool to me. It's like very complex worlds and environments that these programmers and these 3D modelers had to sit for ages making. Aesthetically, I love that movie. I love those. I don't care much for the plots or like the actual films, but yeah, just the visuals and the aesthetics are so cool, and I want to pay respects to that in some way.
I'm the exact same way. I recently watched all the Star Wars in a row, but I was just like so like I don't know why I've probably some level of being on the spectrum, but I've just never been able to follow the storyline of any movie the first time I watch it, because I'm like so overwhelmed by visuals and stuff. But
Interesting.
yeah, I just like watched all the Star Wars just to kind of appreciate this world that they like fully made and like delved into.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do the same sort of thing. I mean, for me, it's like ADD for sure. Like, I do need stimulation at all times. While I'm doing projects, while I'm working on collages, whatever, I could have like a movie on in the background. I could have like music playing or something. You know, have like other projects that I'm doing at the same time, which is like probably not the most, like, it's not the best way to keep productive on these things, because like I do start a million projects and then just never finish them. I like the stream of stuff. Like, I'll pick certain things up the first time and like watch it over and over again, sort of see little details I never thought about before. Yeah, like that's cool to me. You know, like again, not
Yeah,
paying
for
much
sure.
to the plot itself. Like I do that a lot with like the old '80s movies, like Neverending Story,
Yes,
Dark
yeah,
Crystal,
for sure.
that kind of thing. You know, like I don't
Love those.
remember much about the films themselves, but like the music and the environments and stuff, that's always like I always come back to those. You know, just like through the Wikipedia articles and like the images I find.
Always thought prop making is like the coolest, not coolest, but it's like the most underrated form of sculpture, because it's like the most fine art, but you're also making something that doesn't exist, but it's got to be believable to the everyday person. But it's also got to be like novel in the sense that it's like, you know, an alien or a rock golem from a never-ending story that, you know, doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like the whole world building aspects of these old movies and stuff, and like the games and things. Like, I just love the idea of building worlds. That's another thing I've always like tried to do with different projects that never go anywhere. Is like just build these worlds, like rather than writing stories or anything. I just like sort of, like drawing the map or like creating these characters or that sort of thing. Like when I was a little kid, I used to do that all the time. And like that, yeah, that's like the fun process for me is like just imagining these other worlds and systems and the cities and the landscapes and that kind of thing. So I definitely like to do more of that in the future.
I feel like that's like a way that I've not been able to like express properly about my brand is like it's not a brand. It's like my full view of it is gonna be like there's gonna be characters and lore and there's gonna be uh it's literally gonna be like a world that in 20 years if someone wants to completely escape into Salamander they could like full and well like
Yeah. I definitely I appreciate like sort of everyone can take their own thing away from it. I appreciate like sort of everyone can take their own thing away from it. You know? Like with these collages with all these different images, obviously everyone's going to notice different things because that's the thing about Instagram is the everyday person is just going to scroll through, see the image for maybe like 3 seconds, like it or not like it, and then carry on with their day. And so, everyone has their own unique take or, takeaway with it. But I like the format of the sort of the tiled, like the tiled collages that a lot of people are doing now, like what I'm doing, where it's sort of, you actually have to look at the page itself and see the 3x3 columns together, like as the image like carries on and on and on. And like, that's cool for me because it means like, I can work on these other images for the future while doing sort of the immediate stuff. But I'll admit I've kind of run into a bit of a like with the current phase of this tapestry. It's just gotten so tiny and so detailed. I just don't know what the fuck to do with it next. So I think in the future I'm gonna be doing like these more sort of a smaller scale stuff, just showing these little scenes and everything. Like this I'm kind of like at the beginning of this tapestry, and I do kind of want it to just go on forever and ever and ever.
Right.
And just see where it can take it. Yeah, like I love these pages which I'm seeing that do the same thing. They just like it never ends. You scroll and you scroll and you scroll, and it's this whole story unfolding. Like that's the coolest thing to me.
Sure. Like, kind of like speaks to your Tumblr background. It is very. I feel like that. Not that idea. I guess maybe the idea came from Tumblr, but it does. It feels very Tumblr. It doesn't feel like Instagram when you look at a page like that.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't like super active. Like I used to do aesthetics things on Tumblr, but I think what I like about the Instagram format of like the 3x3 tiles is just like very unique to the app itself. Like people are scrolling through their phones, that kind of thing. Like I don't think this collage project would work on any other platform, to be honest. Like I've tried on Twitter, I've tried on other things, and I do want to expand into like videos and music as well. For now, like this is the perfect format with this whole setup. And yeah, I mean, God knows how long that'll last. I mean, Tumblr is kind of dead now.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I mean, I was never really on it, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, like since I don't know, what was it that happened? It was like they made like it's sort of under 18 friendly or something. Oh, did they undo it?
Someone else bought it.
Oh, really? Oh, so it's back again. I feel like the damage is done now, though. No one's going back to Tumblr. Oh, that's a shame. There's a lot of cool shit and a lot of cool artists on Tumblr. Yeah, they've all just kind of had to migrate now. Like this isn't a sort of a permanent venture. Any of these things, like Instagram might die someday.
Definitely could. God forbid for my brand.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, I'm done if that happens.
I personally really like Pinterest. I don't really use it as social media. It's more like my selfish media, where I just like I use like a mood board and for like I guess. Yeah, I just like to
I mean, I used to do the same thing. Yeah, very useful for finding images. I mean, I love that idea that sort of the community comes together, just finds interesting things and shares them. Like, I was never like posting things to Pinterest. I don't really know how that works. Like people pinning stuff.
I've never posted anything.
Yeah, but like someone's gonna be doing it. Like the images
Yeah,
are
for
up
sure.
there. There's some kind of maniac out there who spends their days posting. I mean, like I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
Like there's some
Yeah.
really cool stuff on Pinterest.
Yeah, for sure.
It's God himself, doing God's work.
That's right.
I'm sure that it's probably not all of it, but there's probably a lot of like I don't know what you call it, like cross like taking something viral on Tumblr and taking it to Pinterest. A friend in high school that did that. What was it? It was like 9gag and iFunny. And so yeah, he had like a viral account on, I forget which, but he would just take viral posts from one and take it to the other. I mean, it's a way to do it, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a way that you can take advantage of these algorithms and stuff. I don't know. There are some people who like, oh, there's like courses for it as well now. Social media influencers and
Yeah,
stuff.
e-commerce.
Yeah, e-commerce, that kind of thing. I mean, I've never looked much into it. For me, this is like honestly a side hobby while I'm studying. I'd like to take it somewhere further. It'd be cool if I could. It'd be cool if I could monetize it somehow. Make life a lot easier.
Like by definition, like what I do is like very by the books e-commerce. Like I use Shopify, and there's a funnel from my Instagram to the site, but I've literally never paid for an ad. I don't know anything about ads, but my page tells me I'm in the top 4 percentile of shops that opened the same week as me, so I'm like not really stressing about learning the ads part.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you can create a organic interest in your brand or your art, I mean, I know obviously algorithms aren't always easy to manage, but I feel like generally speaking, you can get a lot of followers, especially because if you already have kind of an Instagram with a large following, as both of you do, that's definitely to your advantage versus somebody who's just starting out and doesn't really understand this stuff.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it is definitely like a case of also like keeping consistency with it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's big.
like a constant
That's big.
flow. Like I'm sure there's like a routine you could set up for posting images if you're like really taking it seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's
Yeah.
becoming more and more difficult to find time for these collages and like the aesthetics page as well.
Yeah.
With just how long it takes and then the actual sort of what I receive from it. I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm not profiting off this. This is just to receive the dopamine hit from people liking my pictures and the attention I receive.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be
That's
I'd be very
also
interested
like
to
a
see.
passion project a little bit.
Yeah, like I'd love to take it to another level. Like, I always thought like doing fashion stuff or like clothing design would be a cool like venture into this.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Cool.
I just need to pick up on the skills. I know nothing about like fashion design or anything like that.
Well, me neither.
I mean, what are you talking about? Like, I've seen your page.
No,
You
but
should
like,
dude.
I'll like get in a room with someone that does like traditional fashion, and I'm like speaking a whole different language. It's like, what? Like I do it I just like did it my own way, I guess, which is a bit alienating, but I'm happy I did it my way.
What was that podcast? I don't know. Like talking about how like algorithms and stuff finds your art and stuff. I guess I got like sort of interesting experience. I've not really got a message, but so I have like a website, just sort of like HTML website, and that's kind of all I have. And obviously, I've been in like Discord groups and told people about what I do, but like because I'm very lazy and I don't have a lot of time to like do stuff, I don't really like promote what I do. So I've had this interesting experience where like my email is public and like I have an email list. So I've not got like loads of likes and stuff, but I have like witnessed like a couple just sort of odd emails like out of nowhere from people who would just be like, "Hey, looking at your website, can I get a CD?" And like with not having the sort of like promotion be like an actual part of what I do, it's kind of cool because I've now got to sort of experience kind of what stumbling across something in the wild is. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a cool little thing. it kind of like polar opposite to what you guys are talking about. Really, I'm just lazy. Can't be bothered to tweet.
Hey, it happens. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like being lazy makes you utilize your skills and makes you more crafty.
That's very cool, but like I don't utilize them to pull my fucking life together. Yeah, I think yeah.
Well, I mean, like there's some kind of income for you through this though, because like you do sell tapes and CDs and stuff.
I mean, actually, though, to be fair, when I sold, like, I've sold out a couple tapes and CDs, but when I sold them out, I was like constantly bugging people about it, like,
Oh, really?
actually kind of putting in a lot of elbow grease. When I've just let it sit, I don't think I've gotten an email in like half a year.
Hmm.
Apart from recently, Turlu, the fucking Turlu guy, emailed me saying, "Hey, I like the comment."
Oh,
Which is
oh
really
yeah.
weird. He's fucking awesome. 'Cause I really like Turlu.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you've definitely sort of managed to get an in on this now. Like we just managed. I mean, like I feel like anyone can fucking do this nowadays, just with like how accessible it is. We managed to get like a record deal, like a vinyl release for this album we're working on right now, which is super fucking dope because I've never like
That's
released
awesome.
an album. Like I've never released an album, like let alone physically. So like this is gonna be a
Yeah,
cool little adventure.
vinyl is amazing. Yeah.
To how to make friends and win arguments.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so I kind of just weasel my way into a success for that. I
Yeah.
studied up.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but that's definitely important is like the whole networking aspect of it and like actually putting yourself out there and trying to work on the brand and make business relations and stuff.
The label owner who's printing us on vinyl, I literally just met in a Discord server like a couple of years ago. I've just been like their friend for ages, and now they have this record label, they're called Rosette, which is just like, yeah, you're totally right. Like I didn't get approached by them, I just knew them.
Yeah.
Yeah, connections are connections. It's like that old cliche. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
I think that's very true. And I think that's something I struggle with for sure. I mean, that's something I'm hoping. That's something I'm hoping I can like take away from this graphic design course I'm doing at the moment. Is because like I feel like I've got a good grasp on sort of the creative or like artistic side of what I do. You know, like I don't know where I'm gonna take it sort of going forward when I actually need to like work to make a living and stuff. But hopefully I managed to get some business skills out of it. Like I did want to do like a fine arts degree at first because that's just I like making stuff generally. But I just feel like at this point, it's very difficult to get an in on like fine art or things like unless you have the connections to begin with, or unless you can like put yourself out there, or just like a lot of the time it's just luck.
We had a guest on, Michael Hofka, who does expressionist type art, and he was talking about how a lot of galleries now, they're actually paying for, if people want to get their stuff featured, they have to pay to have it featured. So it's like the whole point is it's supposed to be about promotion.
I mean, that's like a real problem for my dad, who's like, he used to do a lot of sort of like creative projects and sort of like exhibitions and that sort of thing. But recently, just with how the system works, he's had to do more sort of commercial work or like wedding photography. Fucking hates. But like recently he's gotten this opportunity to have like a private exhibition, but he's just
Great.
He's so out of the loop with the art side of things. He doesn't he's just terrified of like his work not being as good, or like he doesn't know what he's gonna do for it. And yeah, it's like, I mean, I think it's like the other big thing is, you do have to invest quite a lot in these things. So you have to buy materials, you get the pictures framed, that kind of thing. And so like, if no one's buying the paint, if no one's buying the photos and stuff, which, like my dad's living back in Zimbabwe where I come from, and the economy is not so hot at the moment. So people aren't really looking to buy photos or art anyway. And so you do kind of have to think about what is commercially viable and what be interested in, and make sacrifices through that, which, while still doing something that is good,
I think the reason why fine art is like that is because I kind of think it's kind of like a heavily regulated sort of industry, almost like endeavor, because it is, through whichever historical process, I don't fucking know, but like it's become the pastime of people who have a lot of money to spend. So much care and due diligence, and by care I mean more just like meticulous manipulating, not like care for art, has gone into sort of like the industry, like you said, like people paying to have stuff up, and like the way that like a lot of people literally use it as a fucking like tax break monopoly. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
totally.
So like, yeah, it's kind of been distorted by the society we live in. I kind of, in that sense, prefer art that nobody sees, like mine.
Yeah, I think there's always been like at least like a thin veil of illusion of like what the higher classes eye, like everyone overvalued what a high class person is willing to pay $5 million for. They're like, oh, they see something I don't see. Whereas now it's like art is turning more into like hype. It's like if there's hype around something, so it's like it's so what's the word? Like the phrase it's just being like it's being exposed, like the people that don't have a great eye for aesthetics now because they're buying hype. But now it's like they're trying to cover it up by changing the wide perspective of what is of like trying to make the hype aesthetic. But I think someone with a trained aesthetic eyes is always going to be able to see through it.
Yeah, well, just the fact of the internet and stuff like Instagram and stuff where people are just putting their art out for free, like not thinking about profit and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's just a very different environment. It just, it reminds me of like street art or graffiti,
Yeah.
how it's just like art for art's sake, not really with these other labels or these other attachments that fine art has, because like, at the end of the day, like fine art or high art has just become like another consumer good for the rich. So you kind of have to put that in mind when you're looking at the work itself, and like, can it really be as constructive or critical with that attachment to it? Like I'm really excited to see the possibilities of where like this free art can go, or the immediate availability of having images and videos and music and stuff for free on the internet. Cool to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, low art.
And I feel like this goes to kind of what Salamander does, making thrifted garments into new pieces, and then the fashion world sees this kind of trend, and so places like fast fashion outlets try and mimic it, and people don't go for it because it doesn't. That's the whole. It's not just the fact of how it was made; it's who was making it. And now there's more interest in the individual pages, Instagram or otherwise, as opposed to this big artist or this like important fashion design or all this stuff, which quite frankly I think people are kind of fatigued of.
I think the more commercial art gets, the more art commercial fashion becomes. Because, something's got to give. If everything's becoming commercial, I think art or fashion or something, music should become more artisan.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we're kind of seeing with like, because I hopped on I guess the trend earlier is when I started seeing people just screen printing on thrifted clothes. I was like, yo, let me run with that. And just kind of, yeah.
Personally, I think one of these sort of genuine, concrete limitations to art being, we were talking about, you guys were talking about sort of little sort of symptoms of like art not being able to sort of flourish properly, just having these sort of like nasty attachments and features to it in the society we live in. I think that like art is never going to flourish if it has to be like, like the world we live in, it's like you have to, you have a job, and that's it's meant to be your main focus in life. It's your sort of job, and like it's hard to break out from the mindset that like we should live in a world where we can have a job and we should basically. I think the fact that if you are going to spend enough time on art, you have to make it monetary, you have to be able to live off of it, or like it has to be sort of confined into sort of what you do kind of role. When I think we should all be able to just like, yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to make like really, really cool, sort of like really unrestricted art without getting rid of that sort of barrier that like it can become, it does become a profession. It's not a profession anymore, it's just this thing that we all engage in and enjoy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to take that place of, oh shit, am I going to be a plumber? I can't
Yeah.
be one fully.
Well, yeah, it's just like links this idea that art has that barrier behind it, you know, like you have to go and do an arts degree to be an artist or like have those connections or whatever. Like it's treated the same way as like being a physician, being a plumber or something like that, you know, like you have to have the skills at first, but you know, that's not what art is. Like anyone can do art, everyone should do art, you know. I think it's just a really healthy way of expressing certain things and getting things out there, you know, positive or negative emotions or something. And like that's what's so cool about Instagram, and that's what's so cool about just anyone being able to like make a movie on their phone or record an album on their phone or like something like that. You know, that's giving the tools back to people, and like, you know, people should be encouraged to that. I think everyone should make art, regardless of what it looks like. You know, like it doesn't need to be good. I just think, you know, people need to be channeling this whatever energy into something positive.
I was actually going to sort of posit with this and the Ferraro-esque imagery. I think it's interesting we talk about the corporate world, and interestingly enough, so much of that imagery is repurposing throwaway corporate imagery or just the kind of stuff that you wouldn't look over twice. I think it was kind of interesting because when I found Vaporwave, you know, I was expecting the people who'd be in Vaporwave to all dress not necessarily like the 80s, but just like, I don't know, like that sort of like 90s corporate look. And instead, like, all the people that were in Vaporwave all seemed to be like plaid wearing bearded hipsters. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Vaporwave and all that stuff, but you know, I kind of wish that there was more more exploration in these kind of like throwaway corporate aesthetics and kind of repurposing them. I mean, like I have a few, you know, like yuppie style business suits, and I love that stuff, and I love, you know, taking that stuff and you know, repurposing it into a personalized sort of aesthetic, I suppose.
I've seen you in pictures with that suit. You look good.
Yeah. Yeah, I edited it and put it all together. It was, I want to do more of that stuff, and
Oh, that's sick. The Roach World stuff, right?
oh yeah, the Roach World is like, the Roach World is like an offshoot of that, and like the edgy, because you had like the mainstream stuff, and then you had like the edgy Gen X advertising, and Roach World is very much. I'm still like trying to figure out the concept of it, because on the one hand it's like, you know, it is parodying, but I'm kind of like, there's so much irony out now on the internet, and especially like I see it with like a lot of 80s stuff or whatever. People will take like something from the 80s and like do some kind of ironic edit or something, and it's like, you know, maybe it's funny, but I'm kind of over this like hyper irony that seems to exist online.
Dude,
So,
I find it sort of creatively, I find it a little bit lazy. Whereas my art is very novel and fun, but I take it like very seriously, like all the references I use. Because it's not about what the clothes look like, it's like what the person feels like. When someone finds my page for the first time and they see like a sweatshirt with 4 sleeves, like
yeah.
it appeals to that like childlike sense of novelty. It's like that's unnecessary, but it you know, it's cool. And it looks great, coincidentally. It looks great draped on a person. So
Yeah, seriously. I mean, like, I think that is a real problem nowadays, is like the irony poisoning, you know?
Yeah.
Where people just get so tied up in like these layers and layers of irony and post-irony and stuff that like the actual message is kind of lost, or like it just becomes meaningless, you know? And like you can kind of disguise whatever lack of talent, I'll say, under the guise of it being ironic or something like that. And so that just like gives way to a lot of like lazy art or whatever. I think that was probably like a big problem with the vaporwave, but it's ended up in the state that it is. You know, it's like no one could agree what exactly was like what level of irony was being taken to, and everyone wanted to push it to the next level. So it kind of just fell in on itself, and you know, like no one knows what the fuck is going on nowadays. Like, obviously, like there's the Electronicon or whatever, like the 100% Electronica Fest and stuff. And like George Clanton seems to be carrying the torch, or like the community's kind of given that to him, which I don't know. I've like mixed feelings about. You know, like the fact that they like I feel like vaporwave is definitely past its prime. You know, like what needed to be said has been said. You can't really like do anything more with that concept. Like, yeah. I mean, like I still fucking love vaporwave. Like, there's records in that catalog that I hold near and dear. But you know, vaporwave is dead.
Yeah.
Like that's just what it is now. Like that idea of sort of taking the corporate aesthetics or whatever to a whole new, like that's that's still applicable in different. We should just sort of like take it into new avenues rather than pigeonhole it back into vaporwave. Like that's a great fucking concept. I just love the idea of sort of repurposing trash media and trash aesthetics. Like that's obviously Ferrara's whole shit, and that's like all these other artists and stuff. I think people just be widening just what we can do with that concept. It's like that's what I'm pushing for. You know, like with using the old images from shitty 90s blockbusters and that kind of thing. I think that stuff's genuinely cool. There's no irony involved in it. I think that stuff looks cool. Yeah. I'm just putting it in a different context. So like, yeah, the idea of irony, I feel like we should let's just leave that in the 2010s maybe.
I personally got into music through vaporwave.
Yeah.
Sort of put that into perspective. So like my baseline, my starting point was like Mac Plus. So it's like very like, you know, it kind of sets the tone. And like the sincerity I feel in James's records, like they're funny, but they're not funny like mocking. They're just like funny, and like I just feel like it's all taken very sincere, from like the liner notes to the sounds, and like so yeah, I find that was like a really important feature. But also, I think just like the spiritualization of things that aren't spiritual. I think like Claire's gone to the toilet, so I'm just gonna be like waffle. For example, I remember like fucking a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was listening to the Toilet Toad TV Overdrive, whatever it's called, the James music video. I don't know. I feel like the treatment that he does to like media and like the way he makes music, he's kind of like making a spiritual affair out of stuff like out of like 80s culture. I remember sticking an incense stick in a microwave cheeseburger for real. Just like out of pure inspiration and like eating it along with that video. I was a bit dumb as well, but like, yeah, I think
it's pretty poetic though. I like it.
And the spiritualization of non-spiritual things is like my personal big fave for her.
After this question, we'll probably try and go to a break. We've gone. I was hoping to do a break earlier, but I got so invested in this I forgot. So Claire, back to kind of your days when you started out doing art, and particularly when you started going online. Was there a certain website or early game you remember playing that you feel kind of inspired you now or inspired you in the past to kind of start this world building that you've done?
I don't know. I feel like I can't really pinpoint a specific. No, it was like all those things, like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, shit like that. I think at some point Game of Thrones came to the equation. I never like really watched it, but I just like the idea. For me, like especially with games and stuff, like my parents didn't play games, like until I was a teenager, basically. And so like my into stuff like Skyrim and Fallout was reading the wikis and looking at the images and watching like Let's Plays and sort of receiving the information through that, you know? Like, to be honest, I don't play games that much. but I enjoy the culture surrounding it, just like just the imagery and the references and stuff like that are pulled in. And then just the idea of sort of taking all those things together. A big artist who sort of like inspired me recently for this whole thing is like Moby. He's an American artist, like a musician, but also like a visual artist and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, but like a lot of his art and stuff references these games and sort of the films and the kind of hyper information and just all these different things bleeding into each other. And just I guess it's like the secondary takeaway from all this stuff, how people kind of interpret the information. Or like, he's got this one album that is about the perceptions of like the global South, like Africa, Southern America, and Asia and stuff like that. You know, like how it's perceived through stuff like media, so like through the news, through films, and through games, and just, you know, how it's all distorted. And it's like how the West has this perception of what Africa looks like, what Southern America looks like, and just how it's actually pretty different. So, you know, like I'm from Zimbabwe, and I've traveled around, and I get asked questions like, you know, do you guys like ride around on elephants? Do you live in a hut or something like that? You know, like they kind of forget the fact that we're all in the 21st century, and
developed country.
Yeah, well, like obviously developing for sure, and it's just there's like a very narrow perception of the experience of people in the global South. Like, you know, it's just lost to people in the West just because of how encompassing Western culture is nowadays. But anyway, yeah, like his whole thing is like creating music and creating visuals and stuff that kind of reference, you know, things like anime, video games, and that sort of thing, but putting it all in the same context, which I just thought was the coolest thing, you know, like building these worlds and stuff. And actually, like, the ShanzhaiSunbaby project, which is, like, still... I'm still working on, it was kind of, like, inspired in some ways by one of his earlier projects called Diamond Black-Hearted Boy, which is basically, like, all these sound collages and, like, these mixtapes and stuff that sample things like, sound effects from video games, like, it'll take Halo 2 effects, alien sound effects, and weird announcements like EA Sports, and just like, yeah, like completely recontextualizing it into this new space. Like the world building of it all, you know, like he's just come out and written a book that kind of puts all these different ideas together, which I haven't actually had the time to read yet, but I'm very interested in it. Like video game assets and stuff, and like all these other samples and like parts of the album, and putting it together to like create this weird twisted world that does kind of feel like a video game, but at the same time it also feels like these movies and sort of like live TV coverage. No, I mean, like, he's got so many projects out there. It's definitely worth sort of looking into. I think he's a phenomenal
I'll
artist.
definitely check it out.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of where the whole world building interests, at least like in its like how I'm currently using it, comes from. But I think like I always like drawing pictures of worlds in my head. And sort of putting all those things together. Because of my ADD, I can never structure them and put them into like a book or something like that. I could never write a story about these worlds. I can just draw the pictures of them, and I could just like reference them through those means. That still applies today, definitely. Which is why I struggle so much to explain the concepts behind these things. But yeah, I mean, like, they almost don't need concepts or like story behind it. You know, most of what I take out of media and films and video games and stuff like that is just the aesthetics of it.
I'm so the same way.
Yeah, I mean, it has its positives, but also its drawbacks. I mean, I wish I could like structure things into finished projects, and also I wish I knew when to stop doing things, stop adding detail. I think that's something I'm learning to do now.
Yeah, as you develop your style, you'll not that it becomes a process, but you end up like knowing your creative tendencies better, and so you have more freedom to work. It's actually more free to work within confines because you know what your variables are at that point. If you're like you can do anything in any medium and any subject, you're not going to do anything because it's like it's overwhelming. You know, you gotta have some parameters or
Yeah.
something. That's I
Yeah.
mean that's how I am at least.
No, I think restrictions are definitely good. I mean, that's helped me in the past. It's like setting the parameters of what exactly I'm doing, and I think it is healthy to write things down. I think I went through a long point in my life where I was just like, fuck writing, fuck reading, fuck that thing. Yeah, when I've actually applied it to the process and like structuring my ideas and stuff, and like not having it all in my head. Yeah, because then I'm just doing whatever the fuck, and then there's no direction. And then I run into these dead ends. Yeah, no, that's really true.
With this whole project, like I know you mentioned maybe at some point doing like shirts or something like that, but like ideally, and I guess you know too with studying graphic design, and I know this is probably a huge question, but like where do you see yourself in the future? I don't want to set like a specific time, but just like where do you see this going in the future? And like your ideal, you know. Plan, I suppose.
I don't know. I think there's like again, I'm the sort of person who does like to do a lot of different things. Like I'm just very interested in exploring like all the possible mediums I can, you know, that I'm like able to.
Yeah.
And so I mean I'm definitely like at the moment I'm working on an album. Like working on it hasn't gone very far, but there's an album for the ShanzhaiSunbaby project, which will be like the first big step into that world I'm making. It's gonna be called Silver Waters Through Fantasia. And like yeah, like I think with that I'll probably write like a short story or something, just kind of explaining what's going on in the world.
Sure.
And you know, alongside that, I'd like to do more visual work, like videos, and yeah, I'd work on some more music. I'm still getting used to making music and like the, you know, figuring out the digital audio workshops, that kind of thing. And from that as well, like it'd be cool to do more fashion stuff. Like, because that could also be a way for bait to make this commercial and actually make some money for once.
It sounds really promising, and you have like a really good eye. I'd like to see where it goes.
Could we see a Salamander ShanzhaiSunbaby collab in the future?
Oh hell yeah!
Very possible, yeah.
That'd be awesome. Cool. I mean, the problem with my kind of format is using what like the legality of me sticking my collages onto a T-shirt or something like that. I don't know how like far that would go until I get a cease and desist letter in the mail. But like you know. Yeah, I mean, like I'm not only doing sort of digital art. I've been sort of doing more painting, and but it's that you know that mask that I posted on my Instagram. Like that was a project we had to do for Soul. Yeah, for me, I was just kind of like me getting all my ideas out in one space and sort of like doing the sort of like this writing and this poetry on the front. I mean, it's very like I don't know. I was super into Basquiat at the time. That's become a big inspiration for like my physical art and my painting and stuff, and my writing too. And it's like I think I'd like to expand on that a little bit more, and so maybe do some like less digital and collage stuff, and actually get more into painting, and you know, including that with the with the clothing and stuff. Like I've been really inspired actually, sort of on this trip to Nottingham visiting Hannah, because we've been doing a lot of painting and sort of drawing over shirts and jackets. So yeah, I feel like not only working more on the digital stuff, but I'd like to expand more into physical work. That'd be really cool. You know, actual painting and stuff, drawings. That'd be fun.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I have to ask, the name ShanzhaiSunbaby, how did you come up with this name?
To be honest, like the initial spark for it was just kind of like, I need a name for my Instagram. Let me put these two things together. And so like the first bit, Shanzai, that's a Mandarin word. It's like it's a Chinese concept. It's basically Shanzai it refers to like bootleg culture. Like you know, like you get these like fake iPhones or like the fake Nike bootleg shoes and that kind of thing. Like it's like this massive culture in China. It's kind of spread around the world now. It's really big in like the global south. And I just love that idea. It's like taking sort of big brands and sort of all these like very high luxury, like inaccessible to most of the world, like in your face all the time shit. It's like, yeah, making it cheap, making it easy, and spreading it to everyone. I just think is the coolest thing. And yeah, also just the idea of like almost parodying these other big brands. You know, like he'll take the name Nike and call it like Pikey or like
Nick.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's like the Shanzai, that's where the Shanzai part comes from. And the SunBaby part, I think the first thing I thought of was like the Teletubby baby, like the baby in the sun.
Baby.
Yeah, so I guess like I'm the
Yeah.
Shanzai of that, you know? That's the character that I associate myself with. And like I just love the image of like the sun face. Like it's this image that's been used in art throughout history, and it's just like all over the place in different cultures. It's just that idea that the sun would be a head or a face. It's just really cool to me, and so I've been like obsessed with that for a long time. It could have also been just from like the sun face emoji, using that a bunch, and like being obsessed with it.
Yeah.
In short, that's where ShanzhaiSunbaby comes from, is those two things put together. Me being the SunBaby, I don't know, I guess coming from equatorial weather, and then now being in the cold winter of Berlin, Germany, sort of I do miss my vitamin D, and so I'm like holding on to a little bit of that, a little bit of home. I guess that's it.
I can remember here in Southern California where I live, we drive past these houses with like these sun faces. Immediately that caught my eye with your work, and just yeah, it's very distinct image.
Yeah, I like these sort of like widespread symbols and images that kind of get lost in environments and stuff. I love the image of a crucifix. I love the image of a yin yang, because like, or like a heart even. They're just like so widespread at this point that you kind of don't even think about them. But I kind of want to push them in this new direction or something. It's like also, I guess, a small way of explaining the ShanzhaiSunbaby concept is like the image of the sun, like the sun face being so widespread all over the place, I guess is almost in the context of this project, a serial experiments Lane type thing. Like, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched the show. The main character, Lane, kind of sort of like has his presence in the internet, where she's like sort of appears all over the place and kind of has this like legendary status or something. I like the idea of like the SunBaby existing kind of like a similar way in the story as like this thing that sort of travels from place to place through the internet, in and out of the real world and the digital world, along with like all these other symbols, and yeah, like with collaging with all these other things. Yeah, I guess that's a way to tie it all together.
My thought was kind of like, you know, seeing like art that's like made out of like recycled stuff or something, or like recycled metals, and seeing like a sun face. Like that was my perception, I guess, of just that name, was like something from, you know, a junkyard remade into like the face of a sun. You know, I guess like cargo cults too, somehow I guess you could work into that.
Yeah, it is like, I also like the idea of sort of, again, how like that's kind of happening now, where people are like reconsidering trash culture or trash art and putting it in this new context. That's like vaporwave. That's, I guess, like Drain Gang. Oh, like I think the ShanzhaiSunbaby project does kind of bleed into that of like, yeah, it's just an amalgamation of the trash and the shit that people have left behind, kind of bring back to the surface and make people like reconsider.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I like that. Good luck. Keep doing what you're doing, and yeah, keep finding your style, and yeah, enjoy it.
Thanks. Likewise. This has been like super inspiring for me, to be honest.
Is there pages you would like to shout out? I know you mentioned a few in the course of the podcast, but pages or other friends of yours that you would like to do a shout out to?
Well, of course, like I mentioned, my Instagram pages, ShanzhaiSunbaby, Silver Waters Through Fantasia, Venetian Matrix. But also, I'd just like to give a big shout out to Hannah Banana here, who's been here throughout the show. Check out her page, check out her Bandcamp, and check out the album we're releasing soon, In Fantasia.
If you want to know about the album, I guess people could email candlecagepansola2@gmail.com. Happy to share shit.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah, I think those are my plugs.
that will do it for this week's episode of the World Movers podcast, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you.